You live a life managing people and managing perhaps your life through theirs almost, that sometimes you put your own thing to one side. And where I've got better is taking responsibility for myself. You should never do anything that compromises who you are, whether that's your job or what you do, your ethics within your coaching practice. Like, you've got to make sure that, I'd go and have a pint with me. I wouldn't put up with things in the business that were clearly not right and that you'd change things with people, but I put up with relationships because I don't know why, but it felt too difficult to get rid of it, and I learnt a lot from that. And what she said to me is, you're not ill, this is nervous based. You've had a breakdown, and it can show through gut health and all the things that come with it. And she told me a story about, obviously she writes a lot of death certificates, but what she said to me was, the most common death certificate I would ever write would be stress. I always wanted to be that one that stood up and be tough and not show any vulnerability, and probably added to the way I felt in the end. There is always a better day coming, I think, is the message, isn't it?
Nuclear Transport Solutions is a global leader in nuclear transport and logistics, delivering safe, secure and reliable solutions across rail, road and sea. Its heritage goes back 50 years and they have safely travelled millions of miles around the globe. The organisation is also a world expert in design and licensing of nuclear transport packages, guided by values of safety, integrity and sustainability. NTS is committed to environmental protection, innovation and community engagement, shaping a cleaner, safer future for all. NTS is proud to be partnering with the Tackling It Together podcast to support open, honest conversations around mental health. They believe that well-being should be at the heart of every workplace. Together we're working to break down the stigma and build a culture where mental health is supported, respected and understood. Hello and welcome back to the Little Blackbird Tackling It Together podcast, and I'm pretty excited for this conversation. We've got Paul Reid, who is a business owner, strength and conditioning coach professional over at the Vortex Performance Academy.
That's it.
Which is literally just over there. We're at Chester Rugby Club filming them today, and it's just over there. And this come about from you and I having a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah.
We were filming here a couple of months ago, a good few months ago. Well, it was probably October. And you were looking for a parcel. The parcel should have gone to the gym.
Yeah.
But it actually
I didn't remember that actually, but good shout, yeah.
But it came over here and you said, what are you doing? And I told you, we'd met before at a business networking thing. And then you said, I'd be well up for coming on and having a conversation. And I shared with you the purpose, which was to show two men having an open, honest conversation without a pint and talk about stuff that we probably need to talk about more of. So I'm really excited to see where we go. And I always ask the question, where do you want to go? And you've come back and said, open book. Ask me what you want. We'll see where we get to.
Yeah.
Which excites me, nerves me a little bit, but that's all good.
I have nothing to hide, I suppose, and I like talking about my experiences. I always think a couple of years away from 60, share your experiences because you learn a lot over time. And especially when you've had a career, when you've been responsible for thousands of people and you've seen everything, those that come in, perhaps they've lost a loved one, or those who've got addictions. So you live a life managing people and managing perhaps your life through theirs almost. That sometimes you put your own thing to one side, and which has led me into all kinds of pathways. But you learn a lot from all of that because. Without starting too early about getting a little bit heavy, but it's more about you've got to look after yourself first, that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm always keen to talk about this stuff, much more than I do about athletes of combat sport, because you can imagine how many times I got a camera in my face talking about Paddy. And I'm always quite, you don't see me on social media because I don't really have anything to sell, or I try not force my opinions on people. And I always try and be positive if I do put something out there, and that space is not the best space. So I will always say that I don't think I'm great at articulating my thoughts, but some of the things that are close to me, I think I do articulate okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll tell me different.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what the next hour throws out. But you get a sense of a person, and you get a sense of it's not about articulation. It's not about how you come across. We don't need to be a wordsmith. It's just about getting it out.
Yeah.
And the more we can do to get it out, the better. And you said there about managing people, so I probably did you a disservice. When you say managing people, you've worked with the highest profile. You're working with Paddy, Pimblett at the moment, MMA, Molly McCann. You've been working with them for a duration of time, probably hundreds of other fighters over there as well.
Yeah, we've probably got the biggest team, squad, whatever you want to call it, cohort of combat sport athletes. And I'm proud of, because a lot of people would go, and you don't see me always talking about Paddy, because I don't want to be a little bit disingenuous and it's all about these UFC athletes. I work with youth athletes every day. You know, last weekend we've got a youth athlete weighing in, a kid starting his career, trying to teach him the right things to do, giving them more support, young amateurs, you know, on the career path, all the way through to high-level professionals. But then in my career, you know, you've got to remember, the last decade I've been very intense in combat sport, but before that, it was similar. But I was in the corporate world then, where I'm still coaching people to be as good as they can be every single day. You know, my background has always been in, and I don't know how, because I'll just make a point. I've never written a job description, never had a job description, written a CV, applied for the job in my life, and somehow I end up owning one of, well, it was the UK's biggest Mercedes-Benz dealer group, you know. So didn't ask for the wage rise, didn't negotiate a salary. I kind of, you know, just ended up in the position. I wasn't sure when I got there. And I only used that because the skill that I think I brought into strength conditioning, personal training, I'm qualified from a performance nutritionist point of view as well. Corporate health and wellness that I run for 2 big corporations as well. It was about people and coaching and individualism and how to get the best out of people. And some people are easy and some people need a kick up the arse. And while the other one, you'll give a hug. And it's the big thing I see in the sport right now, because we have a lot of, you know, without going against academic, because I clearly respect it massively. And I wish I could have gone to uni, but I couldn't. And it wasn't there for the same qualifications when I was a kid. But we have a lot of people that want to enter the sport environment now and being coached, and you'll sit in the classroom and get your academic status, but they want to go and work with high-level athletes. The problem they all miss is the art of communication. It doesn't matter what you have in theory unless you've built over the years, and this is what I always say, is that I continually try and hone my practice of coaching people. Now, when I say coaching people, that might have been in my business. I've just only finished 2 consultancy roles, still in corporate. Whether I'm coaching the younger team that I'm bringing through, and I'd like them to be the new owners of the gym, whether I'm coaching general population or coaching combat sport athletes. So there's a skill to coaching. So it's that thing, I think, where I started at, that you take responsibility for people. Where I've got better is taking responsibility for myself. Because I finally learned, after a long time of getting old, that you should never do anything that compromises who you are, whether that's your job or what you do, your ethics within your coaching practice. Like, you've got to make sure that, you know, I'd go and have a pint with me, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? That I like me, that I'm doing the right things.
Cheap round, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah. But it makes sense. And over the years it didn't. I got myself in a mess in the corporate world. Like, I run myself into the ground, because I was trying to always do that little bit of pleasing or the right thing. Or, you know, unfortunately you have to do things that are tough, like sacking people and tough discussions. But I'd been through 2 nervous breakdowns, you know, serious illness, that kind of stuff. And that was, though it's stress related, stress will kill you without a doubt. And I've only learned that. But over the years, honing practice was about making me better, that enabled me to be a better coach. And I think that's why I'm keen to talk about it. And the way I always talk to the younger lads and the younger coaches, that you might know everything from a theory basis, although that's open to interpretation. But the way you develop yourself in your coaching practice will change over a lot of years, decades. You know what I mean? And I think the one thing I've learned is, I'm only married 7 years. That was the biggest change in my life, because it was life changing. But, you know, so happy with that. Moving house, selling the business, that was so stressful, if I'm honest, just getting to the point of selling the business. You know, enabling myself to be financially secure, where there was a kid with nothing, you know, got to take pride out of. But I never considered all of that. I was always I've got to go in the job. I work 18 hours a day, run up and down the motorway, 50,000 miles a year, worry about everybody. But I ended up in a hospital bed. And where I am now, and I think enjoying the coaching practices, I build great relationships with the people generally I coach, especially in combat sport. Because moving into that space, people think combat sport and they're tough and they're durable. And they might be athletically, they might be physically, but that's a hell of a tough sport to be in. Especially in the social media space, you know. And they're just the people think that, you know, you've got to be tough and you can't show emotion and stuff like that. And I think I've done well coaching in that because of all the things I learned in the corporate environment, which is trying to talk people out of perhaps being too hard on themselves, trying to give them basics to apply every day, just little foundations they can change every day, which is very different to every athlete. Some just live with their mum, get everything done with them, go to the gym, come home. Some have got a full-time job as well. Don't think that even professional athletes can be professional. They've still got to do a job. Some have got kids, wives, stress, all kinds of stuff going out. So every single one of them needs a different approach. And I think that's like most people in life, isn't it? Can't coach everybody the same. You have to show some empathy. Probably have to kick up the arse at times. You have to always be honest, authentic, that kind of stuff. And that's took me a long time to hone that practice, I think.
As you and I recall when we spoke last time, we were talking about, you know, the industry, and I remember us talking about Ricky Hatton.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as you talk now, having a pint with yourself. To me, that means inner peace. How can you be comfortable in your own skin? And there's a lot of people that'll be watching and listening that feel a long way away from that. I don't know whether I'm there at the moment, but I'm definitely on a path to it. When you look back in your life, into your past, what were the key pivotal moments that have enabled you to get to the point where you are now, where you're a coach? Paddy has described you as an uncle figure, and you are in a professional capacity with him. What are the key pivotal moments? And you mentioned the breakdowns that have got you to this point. They might have made you or broken you, but what are they?
Divorce, one. It's a huge, difficult milestone for anybody, without a doubt. The kids being part of that and seeing the distress that they went through and that, and knowing that left it too long or suffered too much or that kind of stuff. Obviously health, and that 6 months in hospital and loss of 5 stone drove me into some serious mental health issues of contemplation of suicide and all the things that I didn't, you know, I wondered, why am I doing all this when really I've got a successful business, earning decent money and that kind of stuff. It didn't matter. That health issue was without a doubt a wake-up call post the divorce. But unfortunately, when I went through that health issue 6 months after I got in a relationship, and that was worse than the relationship, unfortunately, I had him managed and stuck with that for too long. So they're all things to think, you know, I wouldn't put up with things in the business that were clearly not right and that you'd change things with people, but I put up with relationships because I don't know why, but it felt too difficult to get rid of it, and I learned a lot from that. But I remember the visit while I was in hospital, because during that time, the stress, which they thought at the time was some kind of GI distress, and I was tested for all kinds of things. It started in eat food, start this horrendous feeling that would build from it, and then I'd want to put my fingers in my throat until I make myself sick for nearly 12 hours.
Right.
The minute I touched food. So I went through burying meals and scans and cancer checks and all this kind of stuff. When I went in the convulsion, you would go in convulsion, you feel it hit me with big anti-sickness needles, but nothing would change. A lady came to see me from, I can't remember the name of the hospital, but it was Birmingham, one of the big hospitals. And she came to see me and she had a chat with me. And what she said to me is, you're not ill. This is nervous-based, central nervous system-based. You've had a breakdown. And it can show through gut health and all the things that come with it. And she told me a story about, obviously she writes a lot of death certificates, cancers, strokes, heart attacks, whatever it may be. But what she said to me was, the most common death certificate I would ever write would be stress. I can't put that on them. But most of these symptoms and things happen around stress. And of course, there's always the suicide thing as well. Yeah. And that day she gave me it's like a beta blocker. It was to slow the heart rate. When you feel that feeling coming after you've tried a bit of food, because I was sipping on Ensure drinks that they give, cancer recovery patients. She gave me that, and she gave me a little sleeping tablet, and she told me to download, which I still listen to this day, the some relaxing music, and I downloaded Hans Zimmer album for The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise.
Oh,
So
one of my favourites.
Well, I've watched that film 400 times, right? So, and I downloaded that. So, and that first time it come on, bearing in mind I've been in and out for 6 months and I lost so much weight, it looked awful. It stopped. So, bizarrely, one conversation make you realise how dangerous stress is, make you realise how to relax, put your earphones in, this kind of stuff. That lady almost changed my life, but it was a conversation that made you realise that stress will kill you. And now we live in a world that you've got world leaders and all the things that go on, and that it's led to stressors. I work in the performance nutrition environment and the health and wellness environment. Now we're in an environment people tell you you've got to read every label that's on food, and everything in the food is going to kill you, and it's set out to be toxic and all this kind of thing. And what I'm trying to say to people, stop reading this and stop doing that, because what you're doing is adding stress to your life. Nothing kills you quicker than that. Not because you've had some seed oil in your food. We kind of live in this environment where everything's set to stressors. I didn't realise at the time, but I realise now, and I kind of get away from it, kind of not interested in it. But I do have strong conversations if anybody's working in the field of health, wellness, sports nutrition, personal training. If a part of my gym and I ever see them post anything like that, I'm going to pull them up and say, you need to take that down, and we're not going to associate with it. Because all that doing is scaremongering and putting people into stress. That was my biggest wake-up call, I think, is that I was reading the book, actually, and it's about anxiety, but it's actually really interesting in that they say people become addicted to anxiety because, to start with, it's our protection. It's what protects us, that little bit of anxiety, but actually we use it in the end to say, yeah, but I'm anxious, or instead of trying to position it differently. We all get it. It's how we position it. I get stressed about anything. I would overreact to everything. And in the end, could have killed me. And one conversation that explains that stress will kill you faster than any other disease woke me up. No doubt about it. And I think that getting through the business, meeting a new partner, having a lovely house, the dogs, this kind of stuff is always... I'm passionate, so it's hard not to get a bit stressed at times about being passionate, and I don't like walking past, bad behaviour or stuff like that. But more now if it's in my own environment. If it's anybody else, is not bothered. If that's how you want to eat or you want to tell people how to eat, that's fine, I'm not bothered. Don't do it around my environment, that's all. But even then, I'll probably do it in a different way, and I don't want arguments, just point out some facts. But yeah, that was my biggest learning curve. I told that story a lot, but that lady changed my life.
And from that moment, when she said that, and one, you'll have found out that you're not ill, but also that you have to take action. What is it that you've done from that moment right up until now to identify? Because the biggest thing in my experience is identifying it. I've definitely, mid-30s, I realised I had not a great relationship with anxiety. I don't know whether I told you this, but when my little boy was born, right on the first day of lockdown, I had a pretty big panic attack by his bed. We were in Alderhay Children's Hospital. He was waiting for open heart surgery, and it hit me like a train, that vulnerability.
Yeah.
That was one of the precursors to setting up Little Blackbird. I called it Little Blackbird because I played in Blackbird by the Beatles every day by his bed. And those lyrics got me through Take Those Broken Wings and Learn to Fly. But at 35, I realised that was my light bulb moment.
Similar age. That was similar age to when I went through that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
So what? That realisation is, it's euphoric, but it still isn't easy to put into practice.
No, because it's very hard to put into words. All practice, isn't it? It's kind of, I know what changed the point, but all I know is that I needed to react less, or not worry about something that hasn't even happened, or stop worrying about something that has happened, but it's happened, so what's the point of worrying about it? It was kind of them basics, really. I keep thinking something's going to go wrong, or that person's not going to perform tomorrow, or whatever it is around the business, or we might lose that customer, but we never did. And they come in the next day and they were different, or whatever it may be. It's kind of, I tried to switch on to There's no good worrying about the future if it's not happened. And actually, if something's happened that's perhaps was a little bit upsetting or made me anxious before, there's no, I need to put that there and move on from it. And I would also say, in work, I was surrounded by some really good people in the business I owned the people with. And they knew, because one of the owners of the business, my partner, should I say, was there with me when that first episode started and me feeling sick and like little convulsions and stuff. He knew, they were very supportive. But it was always about putting things in perspective. And the one thing it was is like, what can I do to reduce the way I think that's adding to that anxiety and stress? So simplify it a little bit. Is it that bad? And I always say, like, showing a bit of gratitude to what you've got around you, but also realising, you only got to look around the world how much people are so much worse off.
Oh, yeah.
And I never did that, but I do now. It's just things, especially with some of the youngsters, and I've got kids, 28 and 32. And it's always like the world's going to collapse under them, but they've got a house and a good job, and you need to start showing a different attitude, because you know what, you could be living in Ukraine right now, or you could be, this kind of stuff. Like, be grateful for what you've got. I do think we breathe that through news and stuff, and the kids have a lot to put up with every day. From everything they see in the telly, to everything they read, to the social media nonsense. Don't get me wrong, I think social media can be positive in some way, but by God, it can be negative and lead them the other way. So they have a lot to deal with. I suppose that's why we as mentors try and talk them out of it, but that's a hard job. But I think for me, it was about trying to put my mind in the position and say, it's not that bad. Come on, it's not that bad. And I will say, it didn't happen every day from there. It was still a rebuild process. It took years, even maybe a decade, but I knew it was getting better. Yeah. Meeting my wife, like, that was life-changing. I proposed after 6 months. I wasn't after a relationship, proposed after 6 months and married after 12. I've done all right. She's a lot younger than me and very beautiful. So, I can't complain.
Hey, you're in
so
good
that made
Don't do yourself a disservice.
That was great. Moving to a beautiful house, nice land. She's very successful as well. The dog, I'm just, bit by bit, things build that make you really appreciate and think, I've ended up being very lucky here. Yeah. The business sale at one stage was difficult because Brexit came and COVID came, and every time we were about to get the deal done, fell apart because the world didn't know where it was going to be. Yeah. And I think that made a difference, knowing I think it would never happen. And I don't know why it would never happen. It was a successful business with a Mercedes-Benz brand over the door. I mean, how are you not going to sell it? Yeah. So bit by bit, things fell into place. You sell the business, you've got money in the bank. I don't know what to do with money. I mean, I've always lived a very normal kind of life. I'm a working class kid with no education, didn't even get me school exams. But bit by bit, things changed, and I make sure I'm very grateful for it. And I think that's the important thing. Gratitude, little things to me, like I might pay a lot of money to stay somewhere or for a service, but I might pay them more because I think it's been brilliant. Well, I'll always do a good review because it's been brilliant, but I paid well for it. Yeah. That little bit of gratitude, especially if somebody's done something for me for gratis or helped me with something, that doesn't always happen in the space I work with, if I'm honest. But I think showing gratitude and being grateful, and I am grateful. I wish I had more years than being close to 60. I wish I was closer to 50 and had longer, but you know what I mean. Man. But I enjoy every day, and I think it's not to say that sometimes things don't bother you and things get to you, but like it's about how quickly you can put them away and move on and still know that you're in a good place. And that's easy to say, but there is always a better day coming, I think, is the message, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's interesting that when you talk about key areas, gratitude, the people we choose to be around, and the mindset. How do we rationalise and not catastrophise? And I'm the fucking worst at that. But there are three key things that kind of enable you to develop your relationship with those stresses, with that anxiety. Yeah. What about from a leadership perspective? So now as a professional, as a leader, I did read somewhere that Paddy had described you as an uncle figure. Yeah. What are your core values, your core fundamentals when you're coaching either a high-end athlete or a young lad who's just kind of finding his way in life?
So I think the difference for me, I guess, is life experience and then being a coach, because I talk a lot about, especially in combat sports, it's a dangerous space to be in. Not dangerous just because you're going to get punched and kicked or elbowed to the head. A dangerous space because you're in a weight cutting sport, and weight cutting can kill people. The trouble with just issuing an infographic is that it doesn't work. I'm all about duty of care, which is how do I make this individual accountable to me? Know they can call me anytime, pull them up on things and know that, they're not going to get anything past me. But almost like I've become a confession box for them. Coach, I've overeaten. Coach, I didn't do this. Coach, I didn't do that. But I think it's more that built relationships about duty of care. Is that I'm not just going to deliver you a service, a product. I'm going to deliver you something that works for you, that you can apply small basics every day into your day that make you better, which is the standard principle of performance, which is do the foundations incredibly well. You don't need all the science jargon and all these things that confuse you, which happens a lot in combat sport, trust me, because everybody now academically wants to speak science about combat sports and research, and it's all fine. You've still got people falling off scales every week at the UFC and missing weight. So something's not making its way through. Yeah. What's not making its way through is the art of communication, the language we use that people take away and firstly know how to apply that in their daily life. As I said before, they've all got different lifestyles, from living with mums to families to jobs. Yeah. But also that somebody at the other end is not just giving you a service, they're giving you a coaching practice and relationship that they've always got you. Whatever it may be, you can talk to them at any time, because the big thing about, certainly in combat sport, but actually in business, is that some people sometimes need to talk to you. And I get that a lot. So they're just they've had a bad time at home, relationship. Unfortunately, the nature of the demographic, sometimes, you meet a lot of people, unfortunately, who've got, with addictions or problems with alcohol or social drugs or this kind of stuff. That generally, I think I build relationships with people who'll talk to me, know they can get hold of me, and I'm going to put some care into that as well. And I will put a little bit of zero tolerance as far as what I expect back. But I don't market anything. I used to say this when I used to talk in the corporate world, but marketing's great, but marketing is not always fact, is it? It's pretty much fiction. Selling something can be fiction-based. But all of my athletes and all the people I work with, and actually, if you look at the gym, there's no real marketing going on. We are a referral and recommendation. I'm a referral and recommendation. So there's nothing for sale. You can't go on any of my socials and buy anything, which is great because I don't have to do all these sexy videos trying to sell something, because I don't like doing that. But two is, I think it adds some integrity, as into, your brand is in a strong place if you're getting referrals and recommendations. You don't need this marketing, because what you deliver, and the only currency really we've got, which is genuine, is results. But that's the same thing, I think, with the team that own Rigor now, which I'm very proud of, the people I employed through your own mentoring, I guess, and showing care for them and giving them little tips every day, and at times leave them get on with it. You go make the mistakes. I think it takes a long time to hone that, and I wouldn't say I always did it well, because I never asked for the manager's job. Every time I was either headhunted or thrown into another role which was more senior. I kind of got promoted. And I won't lie to say there was times to think, how the hell did I get here, and how am I going to do this? Because I was 21 when I got my first manager's role. Off a workshop floor, there's a grubby kid. Your experiences hone your practice. I'm quite a caring individual. I think it comes across. I'm very transparent. So I won't hide my feelings either way. If I like somebody, and if I don't like perhaps the way they act, I'm going to tell them, or I'll just have nothing to do with them. It's one way or the other. I'm not going to be stuck in the middle, that kind of stuff. And wouldn't say I always get it right. The gym purchase put me in some dark places, I won't lie. And you're never perfect, and I think it's important we know that. We're never going to get it right every time.
No.
But as long as you don't put yourself through so much pain because you didn't get it right, that's the most important thing. Accept that it's okay not to get it right at times.
Yeah, I think that what you said there, duty of care, really resonated with me, because I think when we're in a world where there's so much pressure, so much scrutiny, so much expectation, that vagus nerve, that nervous system
Yeah.
is getting battered daily like a punch bag. But that duty of care, when we're in a world where 75%, we're still up towards 75% of suicides are boys and men. That duty of care is not just as a leader, as a business owner. That's society, isn't it? Because if we can do what sits beneath that duty of care is empathy, humility,
Yeah.
vulnerability.
Yeah.
And if we can start to do more of that, how do we as men, how do we start to do more of that in our close circles with our friends, our family? How do we start to demonstrate more of that duty of care?
And it can be hard, isn't it? Because we go between the, get over it, man up situation. Unfortunately, it happens certainly in the male environment, right?
Yeah.
And we don't talk enough. Whatever, Paddy was famous for that chat, but generally, sometimes I know my problem was I don't want to be. I've grown up as a tough kid, and I've got people consider me this certain way, and that way I don't want to show any vulnerability. That's dangerous. Now I'll show vulnerability. I have no problem with it whatsoever, and I'll talk about things. Might be to my team, my staff. Just because I'm their gaffer doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to them about how I feel in one day. And I think that was an important transition. I have no issue showing vulnerability anymore at all. Probably that's one of the things within the change. It's tough being the top of a big business, and we were a big business, at our peak, nearly 1,000 staff, a lot of locations, commercial vehicle business, so truck and van, it's different, it's more working class. People who operate them vehicles are making a bucket load of money, feel the stress every day, increases in fuel and all generally transport costs and stuff. So you had to deliver what you said you delivered, and it put you under quite a lot of pressure. Passenger car, very different, and I did run a passenger car group for a while, but that's not somebody's livelihood. You can leave it there and still get your shopping somewhere else. Yeah. The car's okay. In that world, it was working class. The most people who were in it, but it was tough environment, and you had to, what it says on the tin, you had to do that, so to speak. So I always wanted to be that one that stood up and be tough and not show any vulnerability, and probably added to the way I felt in the end, because every time something didn't quite go right, I took it on myself. And actually, it was okay. It was bad. You're going to go through things in a business that big. Where now, I don't think like that. And it might get me for the minute or two. But hours later, the next day, it's gone, kind of stuff. And it's a hard one to put the finger on exactly what that is. But all I know is that I'm going to think about it differently, as than to say, I wake up and I feel great. I've generally got things going around me that are good. A couple of years away from retiring. Got a great marriage. Got a great team in the gym. Went through one of the hardest things in my life and made that gym work. Got all these athletes succeeding. Paddy's story is brilliant, not because he's just a good fighter, but he's changed his life. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he's gone from a kid in Highton that's not really doing anything one full time, and now he's changed his life and his family's life.
Yeah.
That needs duty of care, because Paddy's been through his own struggles, and a lot of the lads do. So however you think about it, I think care and giving time to people is probably what we all need to do a bit more of, because vulnerability in male is something we don't show often enough, and it's okay to be vulnerable. The toughest people in the world show vulnerability, you know what I mean? So Tyson Fury with his mental problems, or Paddy with his, and so on and so on, Ricky, they've all got vulnerability. Thing is, Ricky spoke about it, didn't he? Tyson Fury spoke about it. Unfortunately, that didn't seem to work for Ricky, but I know for Tyson Fury, it made, talking about it helped him, didn't it? So I guess there's not one rule for all, I suppose.
No, and and thanks for sharing that. I think you're right, as in, there's one thing talking about it, and we're getting better at talking about it. So this is a platform where we talk about it, but the next bit's the activation, isn't it? And it's how do we activate that? And I think the likes of yourself and the likes of Paddy and the recent fight, and he still uses that platform, those little things, those little platforms to deliver that message of we need to talk, we need to do more of that. And that, what he talks about is what you're saying, is that duty of care. We need to get an arm around people and support them.
And he cares. Trust me, he's a good human being. In a tough world, and got with everybody the eyes on him, and some of the social media comments are vile, and but he'll tell you the same thing, that to start with in his career, before he went to UFC, he was big in cage warriors. He'd sell out the Echo Arena. The things on Instagram, and he get pulled off Instagram and Twitter because of arguing with people, and he don't do that anymore. He's not arguing with people. He doesn't care about the comments. It's he's learned to do that differently. Like I say to the all combat sport athletes, if you want a presence all over social media and want to build your profile, be prepared for the other side of that. And you've got to learn to, take the praise of it. Actually, I always tell them, don't run your own social media, let somebody run it for you. That's the best way. Yeah. If you're going to be into superstar status, big organisations, and you've got a presence, don't run it. Paddy don't run his own social media. He'll tell Blaze what he wants to do or something like that, but generally he's not going to get into arguments.
Yeah.
And he certainly doesn't want to lose an account with 5 million followers anymore from calling people a sausage or whatever he wants to do. But I think that's the thing, is that it's very similar to what he's done to what I'm saying about what we need to do, which is trying to ignore that noise, really, and put it away somewhere, because the reality is it's not really going to affect you in life.
No.
It's only you're letting it in here and then probably overthinking it.
Yeah.
And that sounds easy, but it's not easy. But changing your life, losing weight, getting fitter, dealing with an injury, serious injury recovery, dealing with perhaps a serious disease or recovery, whatever it may, nothing is easy to change your life, is it? It's no different with mental health. It's not going to be easy, but it's the best thing you could ever put effort into.
I think when you talk about that's really good advice, because social media is a constant trigger. It's a constant vagus nervous system nudge. So a big part of emotional intelligence is be aware, self-aware, that if I'm confronted, if I see something, that's going to be a trigger. So how do we manage that? Take it away. Give it to someone who's not going to have an emotional response, because they're going to have a business response to it. And those little things just protect what we've just spoke about, which is those triggers to that stress, that silent killer just taking over.
100%. And people have got to be honest that social media will stress them. So mute it, block them, get rid of it, because it's not anti-social media, it's social media. It's supposed to be things that you can learn from. And there is some really good evidence-based stuff out there that people talk in real sense and are sharing great stories. And there is, all the good parts to it. But unfortunately, the other side of it is vile. It's horrible. And that's why I've been so tempted when I hear the things about the food label stuff and all this kind of stuff. I mean, stop it, because you are genuinely, because I speak to them, you're putting anxiety in people. All of a sudden they're reading every label they've got because they think food companies are going to kill them. Nobody's out to kill you. Do you know what I mean? So it's...
We don't need to bring any more stresses to the party. There's enough.
The basic principles apply. Try and eat a healthy diet, but a pint of burger now and then is okay. Get your body composition there and thereabouts. You know what I mean? Have a good lean mass percentage, fat mass percentage. Do some resistance training, get some exercise, go and play some sport with your mates and have a laugh. But actually, just go out with your mates and have a laugh. It all applies. They're the things that will change your life. Yeah. If you're getting involved with things you've got to manage every day and read a label every day, can you imagine what that's doing? Yeah. We all know that some good meat and starchy or fibrous carbohydrate and some veg is great. But now and then it's okay. 80-20 rule, maybe go out the weekend and have a couple of pints and everything in moderation, and that feels like a good life to me, because that's how I live, and my body composition is good and I feel healthy and I'm still doing all right for my age, that kind of stuff.
You've just come back from a hip operation as well.
Yeah, hip replacement, yeah.
And how's the body now?
It's just unbelievable. So I had a small back operation the week before that. So I've got a herniated L4, L5, which I'm getting treatment on later. Getting IDD therapy, which kind of, I think it's from the States really, but basically it's a decompression. You go on the bed and it targets the joint and it starts pulling the joint away, so the synovial fluid in the blood and something tries to repair it. But the hip, but I'm nowhere near pain. And talk about life-changing stuff. I was in a decent place, but I've been on prescription drugs for 4 years. That'll send you to some dark places. For those out there who have got pain and or injuries or stuff, please don't rely on prescription drugs, because I did, and it's not a good place to be. suppose I managed it all right, but the difference when I'm not on them, but actually not in any pain and sleeping better, is life changing. So, sounds small, but the hip, honestly, is the best thing I've ever done. And I think 3 weeks I threw the crutches away, and I'm 15 weeks now, and I'm, training incredibly well. And it's funny, just
your clips are unreal.
because I do a couple of clips. I've had 2 people who've had hip surgeries reach out to me, would I help them? And I'm kind of like, go to your physio first.
Yeah.
And I did a little post, but I didn't post it actually. And I'm kind of like, the advice I give them wasn't about, this is the exercises to do. The advice I give them was consistency, ownership, nutrition, rehab. That was the kind of thing I taught. But I taught you to start with mindset. Like, how many times a week are you going to do this? Are you eating correctly? Are you at the right weight? Because nothing's going to affect a hip and a hip surgery rehabilitation than being overweight. And then are you going to do some resistance training? Because that's the big thing. The consultant will tell you, some people have a hip, it doesn't really change it because they've got not enough lean mass to support it anyway. So it's kind of like, okay, well, before I tell you what exercise to do, you tell me how you're going to do it and how you're going to apply yourself every day. Because the one thing I've been is consistent.
Yeah.
Now, I could take that to the hip, and I could do about everything every day, the way you think every day, the way you want to improve body comp, whatever it may be. You're going to have to apply yourself every day without putting yourself under stress. I can't tell you. One of the guys is 7 months, and he's still really struggling. Why do you think he's struggling? He's barely giving himself 10, 15 minutes a week. It's the same thing, I suppose, working on your mind, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don't spend 10 minutes. You've got to realise every day you're going to have to do something to help that situation to make you better. So that was a conversation I had with them both. And then just told them once I get through the physio, if you want to come and see me, come and I'll do some stuff with you in the gym. But it's nice when people reach out, because I don't post anything. I'm not shouting about anything. I'm just saying this is a little video of me doing my work. Yeah. I'll be honest with you, I'm proud of my work.
Yeah, you should be.
Because my consultant said it's one of the best recoveries he's seen.
Oh, wow.
So, I'll take that. So, yeah, that has been just, I can't explain how incredible that's been, that hip surgery. It's
just seeing you out with the dogs as well, and, the walking and
I couldn't do that for 3 years. Every time I tried, I'd be in agony. Walking was one of my worst things. Standing for time and walking was awful. We've got beautiful areas to walk in like that. It's so, to get up in the morning and walk into the White Gateway area, it's got 60 acres of lakes there.
Wow.
And it's like a mini lake district. And the dogs jump in the lake and upset all the fishermen. and I'll just sit, there's a little tree trunk that's left there, I'll just sit on that, and you can sit by the lakes in the morning. When the spring and summer comes, you can sit there at night. So all the ducks are on the pond and all quacking out. It's just brilliant.
Well, that's a perfect opportunity to be grateful, isn't it? Practice gratitude.
Well, I missed walking the dogs, and that's when I say to people, you don't understand how much like this hip interfered with my life. I couldn't walk the dogs, and now they see me running on a treadmill and that kind of stuff. So, but I'm grateful for it. And I take that surgeon for the pint. That's how I feel. Do you know what I mean? It's like he's done a great job with me, and I'm so happy. Yeah. Because I can train finally properly. I'm back in jiu-jitsu now at Next Gen.
Oh, wow.
Done my first 2 sessions. I'm boxing tomorrow morning. All the things I've not been able to do.
Bloody hell. Sounds amazing. And we've spoken a lot around mindset. We spoke a lot around vulnerability, and you've been incredibly open and honest. I knew you would be. What we haven't spoke about is resilience, and the sport takes combat sport takes a lot of scrutiny. It takes a hell of a lot of scrutiny around safety, ethical, everything. But what does the sport do? What have you seen in terms of resilience of the people that you've trained and the journey they've been on? What does it do for them?
I mean, that can be quite individual, I suppose, because I've seen people come through the sport didn't make it, maybe because of lack of resilience. And I always try and point out to them, I think you're too interested in posting on social media than you are applying yourself to be successful in what is fundamentally a very, very tough sport. But if I look at the people, so I'm going to pick one kid out because he's autistic. He got bullied all of his life, as you can imagine. He's a good kid, but he's funny. He's a good old man now. He's a professional in Cage Warriors. His first ever fight at age 16, which technically he shouldn't have been allowed to do, but they were the old days, right? He's 26 now. So he threw a leg kick and snapped his leg in two. That's his first fight. So you're talking about a kid that's, you know, probably wasn't accepted, didn't get treated well enough in the gym, perhaps didn't get enough time, still had a fight, broke his leg, still come back. Now he's a good professional in Cage Warriors. And he's a different man. He can do a talk. I'm going to take him to the school to talk to the kids about adversity, bullied, and how a sport built him. Because he walked into next generation gym. If you just think about that. Here's a kid who's training in a smaller gym in Blackburn, thinks I'm going to go and train at the mighty next generation. Paddy, Luke Riley, Molly, you know, and he's going to walk in there on his own. And he did. And he's still there, and they love him. And he's developed his career, and now he's a really good pro, and he's on a good win streak. Should be fighting in the next couple of months. He's confident, he lifts, his shape's good, you know, if you look at him generally. But that is where you think, you know, does resilience build you? Yeah, because he went through probably every barrier he had to break down in the position he was in to now be a professional and loved within a gym of, like, technically killers, you know. Although I will say it's probably one of the best family gyms you get. They look after each other. So that's a good example. It's changed somebody's life.
Yeah.
And I did a little talk to him because I did a talk to the students a couple of months ago, which was more about teamwork and team spirit and get involved with the team and, you know, exercise and all the things that... but I talked about Chris. I did a little presentation on him. So I would talk about that. Some of them are built for it, and I can see that. If you look at Paddy for 15 years of age to where he is now, that there's something in the mindset that you built with it, like, without a shadow of a doubt. It's so many to talk about. I think the kids it does a lot for. I went away with English MMA with 90 children to Abu Dhabi for the World Championships. It is incredible how these kids take that on, because it's a mini Olympics, right. You know, so... I guess it's the old story, isn't it? If you scratch your skin long enough, it builds, whatever you want to call it, a callus. But I will say this, I've seen those who were never made for it, and maybe they want to do it for their mates or the social media. And that's understandable, by the way. I want to be, even in my industry in strength and conditioning or sports nutrition and weight making, you get a lot of people come in because it's cool to be a mixed martial arts, right? And a lot of people want to be around that perhaps because they have been in a space where they've been bullied, or so they want to be seen. They're in it. It's not a space that takes any prisoners. I'm going to tell no lies, but generally all the guys who come through, I see now are doing well. It's because they're around good people. And the one thing, and shout out to Paul Rimmer, the next generation, they've got a really good, and his team, by the way, they've got good coaches that talk sense to them. And by the way, not only just in the gym, about outside gym behaviour as well. So it's the toughest sport in the world. It's not tough because you've got to do technical training every day. From your jiu-jitsu to your wrestling to your striking, it's tough because you're going to be out of camp where you're going to be eating food, and then you go in camp and you've got to be quite restricted in a big calorie deficit and eat the right things, and you've got to do these weight cuts that everybody sees and unfortunately too much sensationalised. But it's never easy. And then you've got to go in the fight where you're technically going to either be choked unconscious, could break your arm, or get kneed and punched and kicked to the head. You know, it's like... But I'll tell you now, I've seen some of these people that's just built them as... because how can it not build you? They talk about character building, but you wouldn't do it on your own. They talk it's a very individual sport. Well, it is when you're in there, but it's not actually, you know, it's a team sport, because your teammates... If you watch Next Generation, especially Paddy, and they shout out to him, it doesn't matter if he's got amateurs or one of the younger pros, he's there straight after. He'll travel the country to go and support them. Can you imagine what that means to... So resilience comes, I guess, in many ways. One, because you're going to go through something that's quite tough and you've got to deal with it. But two, you're in the gym with people around you every day that are moulding you. Which I suppose we all want, or we've all had, or, you know, it's good to have that experience of somebody that you're trying to learn from. It's not a sport for the faint-hearted, no doubt about it. You know, and you've got to think about it before you get involved.
And it's around having those people in your corner that are putting your duty of care at the forefront.
That will throw a towel in.
That won't be everyone in the industry.
No, you've got this thing, you throw a towel in if you think you take too much, you know, that will pull you out of a fight if you don't think you're ready, because we've done that, how many times. Mentally not ready. You're not ready. You can see you're not ready. You can see the anxiety's built up. You're not being consistent. Don't let them fight. Those that we know are never going to make weight, don't put them through a dangerous position. I've walked away from people who said to the coach, he's not going to make weight, and pulled them out of fights. That's the duty of care bit. You need to send people in when they're ready. The right teams around them, they know they're ready, they're mentally, it's not physically, because on the night and that walkout, it's 90% mental. Physically, you've done the work. Most people, a lot of people can crumble on that walk, and I think that's a message for life as well, which is sometimes you just got to get through that door. And then we've seen that many times, especially with the youngsters. And it's okay to pull them out and maybe work with them again and get them ready at the next time.
Paul, it's been brilliant. I've loved this conversation. We ask all our guests as we get towards the back end for your little blackbird, a worm of wisdom. So that might be advice to anyone young in the industry, maybe someone who's encountering stress that you mentioned before, or maybe like a younger version of yourself. What would your little worm of wisdom be?
Probably it's never as bad as you think it is. Tomorrow will always be a better day, and you've got to always keep working on yourself. Probably about it, really, for me.
I love it. And listen, thanks for your time. I know you're a busy man, but thanks for being so open and honest.
Pleasure.
Cheers, mate. No problem. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching the podcast. Please take a couple of seconds to engage with us. Please subscribe, like, or give us a comment on how you're finding the podcast so far. And keep listening. Take care. All the best. Keep smiling.